baby boomers, including myself, are well into our 60s and 70s and trying to figure out how we'll make it through life the next 20 or 25 years or so. During the COVID-19 pandemic, everyone experienced firsthand what it's like to be isolated from friends and family. Loneliness is as deadly as smoking 15 cigarettes a day.
Out here they smoke for flavor. Flavor big and bold.
The pandemic also worsened the previously unseen housing shortage on the horizon, with 10,000 baby boomers turning 65 every day. I remember growing up in a neighborhood where all the kids hung around together. Neighborliness happened naturally. The reason our parents all knew each other? Hordes of kids ran through one another's houses. Garage doors were always open, and neighborhood birthday parties happened on most weekends. Is it possible to recreate a sense of community that once occurred organically? Many seniors, and that list includes me, are able to live independently in a variety of housing configurations. The Canyon Pointe Apartments for Seniors, owned and managed by Boulder Housing Partners in Boulder, Colorado, is one such example.
Boulder Housing Partners is Boulder's housing authority. We work with the federal government as well as the state, but we are the city's housing authority. So we issue vouchers, we maintain and build affordable units, and then we also help our clients or our residents while they're in their units just have better outcomes, better lives.
Before COVID-19 shut the place down, I had a chance to visit with several Canyon Pointe residents who talk about their experiences in this naturally occurring retirement community. John Filipazzi lives in one of the 81 apartments. He ended up in Boulder needing a change of scenery.
I flipped a coin. It was either Boulder or Berkeley. So heads it was Boulder, tails it was Berkeley, and that was it. I wanted a change of my life, a change of my scenery, and that's what I did. So I started the hitch, and I got a ride all the way up here on my first ride.
Elizabeth King lived in Japan before moving to Boulder.
And I studied with a teacher there, a Buddhist teacher from Tibet. And at some point, he wanted to start a university in Boulder. So he asked some students to come here and help with setting up that university, which still exists now as Naropa University in Boulder.
Bill Napier came to Colorado working at a dude ranch near Estes Park.
As it turned out, after a hitch in the Army and some hunting around for jobs and back east, we decided that we'd pack our Volkswagen with everything we owned, and we drove to Colorado.
Marc Mottier emigrated from Switzerland to the United States in 1949.
We spent like 6 years in Canada, and my father eventually got a job as an engineer in New Jersey. And then we became citizens 5 years later.
Kathy Pressman lived in a California commune before moving to Boulder.
Those were great times. Those were hopeful times. We thought things would move in a direction that I thought was right. And I raised my sons there, my children.
Rinehold Tarp, originally from Denmark, ended up in Colorado as a child due to health reasons.
I had to learn a trade, and that time the easiest thing to get into was printing. So I was a printer for many years.
Pam Griffin provided care for her mother in California before returning to Boulder.
And I was living on Social Security. So I applied with the Boulder Housing Authority, and within about 3 or 4 months, a space came available here at Canyon Pointe.
It is for seniors, so 55 and older, and they have community gardens. It's one of the high rises in Boulder, if you really consider it a high rise, but it has multiple stories, and so it can house quite a few people. And so yeah, it's a safe place for people that are on fixed incomes to get to retire, and also it's downtown Boulder, so it's nice for people that have limited mobility or transportation limitations.
According to a 2015 U.S. Aging Survey, 58% of seniors have lived in the same home for at least the past 20 years. Even though people ideally want to stay in one place, there continues to be anecdotal evidence about future uncertainty when it comes to housing. At least for these Canyon Pointe residents, their housing future is very certain in a safe and caring accidental community.
I've been hopscotching around this community. I think I've lived in a total of 11 or 12 different places in Boulder. And finally I shared a house with a good friend of mine, a woman who lives up in North Boulder, and she said to me one day, I'd be glad to have you stay here, but you money-wise, you really ought to think about applying to Boulder Housing Partners.
When I was a child, I used to have this fantasy, because we were living in New Jersey in a house in a middle-class neighborhood. I used to see these TV shows, like Mrs. Goldberg, where people were living in these apartment buildings and they had all these relationships going on.
Excuse me, Daisy.
And so I did, and it took me slightly over a year to get in.
That always fascinated me. And so I thought once, and then when I moved in here, I realized that it was sort of like my childhood fantasy of moving in. And it has its pluses and minuses.
Canyon Pointe is a very diverse place, and I think I've found my place by living here. It's not what I expected. I didn't expect to be here in a senior housing unit.
When I came here, I was joyous because I have my own containment. And what I really like is I like to keep things clean and neat, organized, hygienically sound,
I lived in 2 different places within 2 years, and each of them was a lonely place, and I didn't know the culture. I'd really forgotten a lot.
Most of all the housing partner values are really consistent with my own personal values, so it doesn't take any effort to maintain that. So all this housing partners has given me that center of continuity of study, which is my main focus.
And there are people who whose political beliefs are totally different from mine, but we're neighbors.
I came into Boulder Housing kind of at the back door. It was probably like 18 years ago.
So I was nervous at first. I mean, I'd lived in homes and I'd lived in condos, but I'd never lived in a big apartment building. And I thought, oh, what's it going to be like? But I moved in with some trepidation, and I found it was really easy to adjust.
And I've been happy here for the most part. And you can't, especially in education, is incredible.
It's just a wide variety of people who live here. We've got an opera singer, and we've got accountants and teachers, cab drivers, just a mix of people from all over.
Well, it's already made, trimmed in blue, something old and something new, something new, something new, something old and something new. Well, it's already made.
Most housing configurations are not specifically planned or designed to meet the needs of seniors who live independently in their own homes. But nonetheless, retirement communities can naturally evolve into dynamic and caring neighborhoods.
When I came here, I felt so comfortable. We have people from so many countries here, and from many backgrounds, and we have to get along with one another if we want to be a community.
I help various people. In fact, throughout this whole 9 years, I've helped people move, okay? I've helped people clean.
I laugh when we get together. I say it's like a village in New York because it's all these different ethnicities, and I enjoy that. It's more prevalent in this building than it is in Boulder County at large.
Your community is important. You know, I come from Denmark, but it's more of a community feeling.
It's really delightful. I didn't expect it, and I enjoy it a lot. There are people who don't speak English here. We have to help one another in many ways.
It's good for me because and I never realized that I was going to get involved in community.
But I give up 2 hours of every day it snows, and I also do the raking of the leaves.
You set up a council some years ago, and I didn't like the way the politics around it at the time. And so I was kind of trying to be the peacemaker because there was some fighting.
And for 5 years, I also did the food delivery. They have a free food delivery, and I helped with all that, clean up and set up and all that.
And I work full-time as a caregiver. Well, I go into people's homes and I take them to doctor appointments and those sorts of things. I prepare meals for them and help them around the house.
While researching this story, I asked in a Facebook post, "Who will take care of you when you get old?" I was surprised at the 2,000 plus engagements and 850 responses that ranged from myself to nobody to I don't know to maybe one of my kids.
What are the lives that we're changing by offering housing to people that need it in our community? And so once we kind of started focusing on that, the outcomes, not just the output, but the outcomes, then we really started focusing on education for young children, skill sets for older adults, ways that we can help people get the services they need, whether it be through EFA or food banks or Medicaid, things like that.
My little neighbor down the hall, she was 96 when she passed in the spring, and she had been here, she had lived here for 27 years. And it was great that people were there to help care for her.
I think if I lived alone I'm 78, if I lived alone at my age, I think that I might become more rigid in my thinking and in my activities.
People really watched out for her and took care of her, checked on her and things like that. And there are other people in the building that's happening with.
2 new knees. But I was able to handle that with my family. So they would come in, they came in and helped me out. But everybody's always very thoughtful, you know, how are you doing? Do you need anything? Can I help you? It's a very helping community.
Seniors and their families think differently and more broadly about a whole host of issues. Safe and decent lower cost housing.
Do you monitor yourself kind of month by month and look in the mirror a lot and, you know, calculate just how much more gray you have in your hair and all that? At the age of 77, I find myself very frequently kind of bewildered by the fact that I'm this old.
Necessary social services.
I have been part of and facilitated a group at Walnut Place. It's kind of a support group, but we also talk about things like eating or spiritual things.
Arts and other cultural offerings.
There were all sorts of talent shows where people that we didn't know about, you know, stepped forward and did something magnificent.
Eliza Jane, oh Eliza Jane, oh Eliza Jane, oh
we have get-togethers. There were movies and dinners. We celebrate birthdays. Sometimes we go out. We had a woman who was pretty advanced in age. She was from Ireland. So we'd go to an Irish pub for her birthday, and that was fun.
Adequate public and private transportation.
It's really easy to get around and easy to commute, you know, with buses and so on.
Health and wellness programs.
I found out that I was eligible for this grant because I was a low-income senior, which I found out through dental aid, which came here to do free cleaning.
Right now, one of the things that we're trying to put together is first aid and CPR training for people who'd like to do that.
The community room really got used. There's exercises classes, there's people who come from, who give 15-minute, once a month there's a woman who gives you a 15-minute massage, and then there's another woman who comes and does Reiki.
Life care managers like gerontologists and social workers believe there is a strong correlation between safe and affordable housing and keeping seniors healthy through accessible, informal, and formal caregiving. Canyon Pointe forges relationships with nonprofits. One such organization is Boulder Food Rescue that collects vegetables and fruits from local food stores and redistributes them to housing communities.
So this is Boulder Food Rescue. It's a nonprofit group that basically takes food waste that would be going in the dumpster and distributes it to folks who need it. But yeah, every Saturday we bring a load of food.
Canyon Pointe completed an extensive renovation of community common spaces, including the shared kitchen and multi-purpose room. Activities like dinners, special events, and food distribution happen there.
It's a pleasure to be in this room because for a year we haven't been able to access it except to pick up our food delivery due to COVID. There are people who come in to water the plants and to give the food delivery, but other than that, people have minded the necessary rules.
There's a stereotype of seniors that they live alone and isolated in their apartments with their cats and old newspapers stacked to the ceiling. That's certainly not the case at Canyon Pointe.
We have 16 new people whom we don't know at all. We barely know their names, and we've gotten to know a couple of them, but from a distance. So this is a challenging time, but I'm happy that I'm living in a community rather than all by myself in an old apartment as I was before.
I didn't want to just get fixed watching TV, you know, all day long. You know, that was something. That's a horrible thought for me, you know.
I got myself a program for physical fitness, and I eliminated eating out. I eliminated hanging around the coffee shops twice a day, 7 days a week, which I did for years and years and years.
After COVID-19 closed the apartment complex to outside visitors, residents were resilient.
The big thing that happened to the world, of course, is the coronavirus, and that gave us time to contemplate even more.
It's really surprising how good people have been in terms of caring for one another during this time.
And I've just been like hanging out here and hiking and bicycling. I've been bicycling to Louisville pretty consistently, 20, 25 miles. And I feel good.
Yes, I have been able to talk to my neighbors and celebrate birthdays, but being careful.
It's hard because we have small apartments, we have little one-bedroom apartments, which we like very much, but we don't have a chance to socialize with one another. To me, the community aspect of living here is the most important.
In June 18th, I had a bladder tumor removed, and it was benign, so that's a good sign.
There are a couple people on my floor that I know don't cook for themselves. They get like Meals on Wheels or something like that. So every couple of weeks or so, I make a neighborhood dinner time. Tonight is it. Tonight it's happening. And just deliver some simple meal to a couple of people. And other people are doing similar things.
People have been pretty careful here, and so far nobody's been infected in the building.
And I'm looking for the day where I won't have to worry about wearing a mask.
A longer life doesn't always translate into a better quality of life. No one knows this better than the millions of adult children caring for their parents who struggle to remain in family homes and communities ill-designed for the challenges of aging.
People who think you move here and you don't have anything to do, wrong. You can be as involved as you want.
So about a year ago, my current partner, Diane, with whom I've been together now 23 years, I think, said, Bill, if you ever want to think about getting back into painting, you better do it now. You're not going to live forever.
It's a very active group, and some people are more active than others because they tend to age in place here, which is what most people want. They want to stay in their home.
The accidental and neighborly community is a hedge against loneliness.
I'm kind of a loner, and I work out pretty obsessively, and I'm really, I try to be really fit, and my health is really important to me.
My son encouraged me. He said, Mom, this is a much better situation for you than living alone when you don't know people in Boulder.
Physical activity and getting out, not staying homebound all the time, but getting out, into the world, is really important to me.
People think that you're just going to shrivel up and blow away in your unit. Well, that's not true. These people are very active. We talk to each other in the hallway, and I find it really to be a lovely community.
Historically, seniors aged in their homes for as long as they could, with support from family and informal caregivers, until they died or health conditions declined to the point that hospital or nursing home care was necessary.
I'm going to be 79 in November. So, the backpacking, the window of opportunity is getting smaller and smaller. But I love walking in the mountains.
Include elderly people in your life, even to young people, and help your children to make elderly people a part of their life. Not just their grandparents, but other people as well.
I need my insurance because I'm dealing with cancer right now. I'm dealing with bladder cancer, and the treatment's very effective. And I just had 3 treatments about 2 months ago, and I have a procedure coming up next Tuesday.
My little neighbor down the hall, she was 96 when she passed in the spring. And she had been here, she had lived here for 27 years.
My granddaughter comes every Monday to stay with me, and she has lots of friends in this building. She likes to run all around, and she treats them like friends.
I find that mostly everybody in this building that I know of there's somebody who's watching out for them.
The circumstances of where, how, and with whom people grow old are changing. From Golden Girl roommate households to senior housing like Canyon Pointe, baby boomers are redefining how they live out their lives.
I mean, what does it matter? If you know that you're going to end up dying anyway, you might as well do what you want to do.
Like having ice cream on the chocolate cake.
I feel like I've not been vigilant or paying attention. Somehow I've let all this time slip by, and all of a sudden obviously, even with the best of luck, I'm in the winter of my existence.
For me, I was working so hard, I did not think about retirement, and when I was suddenly cut off from my colleagues and from my location of work, it was a big shock for me.
I would ask this question: is there something substantive that you would like to achieve that you haven't yet? If there is something like that in your life, then the thing you have to do is sit down and orient yourself towards it, because you are losing, you're running out of time. You may live to be 90, 100, but the point is you don't know.
Seniors are breaking down the old stereotypes and rules and building new visions of great places to grow old and doing it better, aging gratefully, living in community.
I never expected to live in a senior community. I now see that I don't really have any alternative.
I still do a lot of photography with sunflowers and people, and I'm waiting for the world to open up.
You know, it's a bit annoying, you know, but that hasn't really affected my life that much. I'm careful when I go shopping, and I wear my mask even when I go hiking.
And people have their own issues with old age, but I hope that we can become more and more community oriented, whatever that means for each person.
I still pretty much do everything I did 40 or 50 years ago. So I've been very lucky health-wise. I still climb mountains, some of them with ropes and technical equipment every once in a while.
One should prepare for retirement in one's mind quite a long time before that happens.
I still ski tour all winter and hike and backpack with my partner in the summer. So physically, so far, knock on wood, I don't have a whole lot of gripes about things. I feel very lucky.
And I didn't know what to do with myself. I would get up, I would wake at 5 and think, should I get up? Should I go to sleep? What should I do? You know, I feel guilty if I went back to sleep. And so I had to make a schedule for myself and keep to that schedule and discipline myself to make my days full and to make them count rather than just lounging around.
When you get older, you can have a lot of vision, but you realize some of those things you have to stop. You have to prioritize.
Everything works pretty easily here. If you don't want to do something, you say no. And if you do, there are always lots of things you can do.
If I get a second man, you know, maybe have some wisdom you can pass on.
But there's a lot of volunteering going on here, whether it's the film festival or Creek Fest or those sorts of things. A lot of people volunteer for different things outside of this particular community.
Housing Partners it's great. I mean, well, wasn't for Housing Partners, I don't know where I'd be living. I'd have to go live with one of my sons, which would be awful. Because they're so bossy.
Give yourself a break and don't impose too much expectation on your every move.
Keep your sense of humor. Nothing lasts forever. And just be grateful for what you have, for whatever you have. And be kind. It's really, especially these times.
It's good to strive, and even hard, but to condemn yourself to such extremes misses the point, which is always this: engage in doing while being transcended in what has been done or will be done.
And it's nothing, this building is not contrived. I mean, when I moved in here, I thought, oh wow, I'm living with the people. I'm back in Berkeley, you know, living with the people again.
There's a very familiar period of Bach's periods and fugues. I updated it to make it sound a little more contemporary by putting a little bit more chromaticism into it, so that now I play a version of it. So anyway, put a couple extra notes.